Hello Loggers fans, and welcome into another edition of Meet the Loggers. My name is Nick Riddolotti from the Loggers Radio Network, and today I am joined by Loggers catcher Tyler Servais. Tyler, first off, thanks for being on.
Yeah, no problem.
And the first thing I got to ask you, Tyler, you've played in the most games in the entire Northwoods League behind the plate at catcher. How's the body holding up?
It's okay. It's okay. It's one of those things where, you know, I wake up every day and I'm sore every day, no matter what, pretty much regardless of what happened the previous day. And got some chafing going on, got my stuff for that, but I'm hanging in there.
Got the baby powder?
Yes, lots of it. I got like 5 different things. I've got the ointment, the cream, lotion, everything.
Everything. Now, Tyler, I know this is a question you probably get asked a lot, and you probably get a little sick of it, but your father, Scott Servais, former Major League Baseball player, also has worked in front offices with the Rangers and is now the assistant GM with the Angels. Before I get to that side of it, he actually grew up in this area, so for you to play here with the Loggers, it's a little bit of a homecoming for you, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. You know, my dad has stories about, you know, he played a lot of games on this field, played a lot of games on fields we've been playing at. He played games in the Battle Creek Stadium and just different stuff like that, and he remembers all these places. But like you said, you know, coming back here has kind of been like a second home to me. I've come back here, you know, once or twice every single year pretty much as long as I can remember.
And do you feel you're at a little bit of an advantage in that sense? Bobby June's from La Crosse, but I know you have family. In fact, your host family is your grandparents.
Yeah, it's been great, you know, being able to stay with my grandparents and have a lot of family come to the games. You know, I have to leave a lot of tickets, you know, throughout this year, and, you know, I've had all my uncles and aunts' families come out to games, and it's been a good experience.
And now to the baseball side of things, Tyler. Your father played professional baseball and has been involved in front offices. How big of an advantage has that been for you growing up to get that insight from literally inside Major League Baseball?
Yeah, I definitely feel like, you know, I have a good idea of how things work for the most part with the front offices and throughout the minor leagues. And for me, I feel like the best part I've liked the most has been working with a lot of the minor league coaches. That's one thing, you know, my dad likes to have us do is because, you know, he gets tired of coaching me at some point because I get a little frustrated with him because he is my dad after all, and so, you know, I want to listen to some things he says, but other stuff, you know, I take a little harder. But I get to work with the minor league coaches. A lot of times they have a lot of good ideas and can see things from a different professional perspective that my dad isn't able to provide.
And you talk about minor league coaches you've interacted with. What about growing up? Did you get to interact with any professional ball players or big league managers?
Growing up, as a while ago, in terms of when my dad was playing, I don't remember all that much. I remember more just with the Rangers, and I remember being in Texas before games, and Ron Washington would be hitting me some ground balls during BP. I was playing over at first base there, so he would be working with me on my ground balls.
Very cool stuff. Now, you were drafted. You grew up in Colorado.
Yes.
You were drafted by your hometown team, the Colorado Rockies. Talk about that experience of not just being drafted into professional baseball, but a team that you watched growing up.
Yeah, definitely. You know, my dad actually played for the Rockies for 1 year or 2 during his career, and it was just one of those things where they asked me to come out to one of their pre-draft workouts, and so I went out there, had a pretty good day. You know, did good BP, threw the ball pretty good, and on the actual draft day, the third day of the draft, I was just actually down by the lake with one of my buddies out on the water. And I came back up to the house, and my mom was just like, hey, you know, you got a few phone calls here.
A few phone calls from Major League Baseball?
Yeah.
How difficult was it then to weigh your options and decide not to accept that offer to join the professional ranks?
I mean, I think for me, it wasn't really that tough of a decision the whole time. The harder decision was first trying to figure out where I was going to go to school. But then after I'd picked Princeton, I was pretty set on making sure I would go there.
You chose Princeton, an Ivy League school, one of very few Ivy League athletes here in the Northwoods League. Talk about the challenges involved in going to a school where, for once, athletics isn't as important as academics.
Yeah, you know, it's a different school culture there, you know, and I talked to a lot of guys here on the team about how our practices at Princeton are set up pretty differently than they are here. At Princeton, it's you set your academic schedule, you know how you need to set it to get into your major and do stuff that way, and then when your classes are over, then you go to baseball practice, and then coach is really just working around that. He knows what your schedule is, and we usually have like an early group and a later group, and as soon as classes just get done, then you go to practice.
Now this summer, you've been serving the full-time role of catcher, the backup, the guy I guess you were sharing time with, Keaton Aldridge, had to go back with some concussion issues. You've been carrying a lot of the weight, but Steve Polaris, a guy who's played virtually everywhere on the field, has kind of came in and played backup catcher. Talk about the learning experience for you being able to kind of mentor him in the intricacies of playing catcher.
Yeah, people always say the best way to learn something or make sure you really know is be able to teach it. And now I had to go through the same process that my dad was able to teach me how to catch. So everything that my dad taught me is what I then taught Steve, and I thought Steve did a great job filling in for us.
And now the Loggers have signed for the playoff push a backup catcher from Iowa, Keith Brand. How big of a weight is it off your shoulders to know that if you need a day off, you've got a full-time trained catcher to fill in for you?
Yeah, it's great having Keith here, and I think he has a great attitude, and I'm just I'm glad that he's here to fill that role for us, and it's an important role.
Tyler, talk about this whole summer, this experience in the Northwoods League, what you've gained, and maybe some of the things that have been tough for you here this summer.
I think I've learned a lot about the mental game from Coach McKay. Obviously, he prides himself on that, and that's what our whole team's really structured around. I've struggled a little bit with the bat, this year, and really haven't hit the way I wanted to coming into the year. It's really been one of my toughest offensive seasons ever. But in terms of other parts of my game I've really improved on is, my throwing. I feel like I've thrown the best I've ever thrown this summer, and that's something I'm really proud of. And, the bat's one of those things that can come back anytime, and I've been feeling it swinging better the last few games. So I'm just looking forward to going into the playoffs and playing good here.
Now, it's interesting. You may end up being drafted again and back into the professional ranks, and baseball is a game of failure. You're probably going to fall upon another hard time offensively. Do you feel you'll be an advantage over maybe some other guys in the lower minor league ranks, and the fact that you've had a slump like this that's lasted a good amount of time, but you're fighting through and you'll have had that experience?
Yeah, and definitely. And that's what, Coach has just been talking to me about, while I'm really struggling. He says, make sure you write down what you're up there thinking right now, how you're feeling. That way, because this is going to happen again. You're going to suck again at some point in the future, basically. And if you can know how to get out of that quicker than the other guy, you definitely have an advantage.
A little bit off the radar of baseball, Tyler. I understand that in high school, you were a bit of a music enthusiast and actually were in a band.
Yeah, in terms of my music appreciation, I guess, that didn't really take off until my senior year, actually. I got together with my group of my buddies, and they were all a little bit more into the music than I was, but they were able to kind of teach me the ways, and I was able to pick up a little bit on drums and backup guitar, rhythm guitar, and was able to play for our band in the school's Jam Fest. We actually ended up doing really well.
And what was the name of the band?
Assaulting Empires.
How do you come up with that name?
Honestly, we were sitting in the basement. An interesting story, actually. One of the other bandmates, his dad was an MLB umpire. And so they have different umpire stuff in their basement. And one of them says, no assaulting the umpires or whatever. And then we just changed it from there to Empires, I guess.
All right, that's good stuff. So maybe something to fall back on if baseball doesn't quite pan out?
I don't know necessarily as a career, but I definitely like my new music interest, and I'm going to continue, playing the piano and doing different things like that.
Tyler, if there was a Major League Baseball player you feel your game most resembles, who would you say it is?
Ooh. It's a tough one. I don't really have anyone that I would say I model myself after right now. I look at some switch-hitting catchers around the league, and I'm still trying to find that, I'd say.
And what about growing up? Was your father your favorite baseball player,
Yes.
or was it someone else?
Yes, I definitely say my dad was my hero in terms of that respect.
Now, I know in elementary school there's always this weird competition amongst the kids. Well, my dad's a lawyer.
Yeah.
Well, my dad's a doctor. Do you trump it all when you say my dad's a baseball
Yeah,
player?
and one of the great things is my dad actually would make a point of it, and he loved coming in while he played. He'd set aside a day where he'd come into my classroom. He did it multiple times, probably 3 or 4 times, and give a whole presentation on what it's like to play in the big leagues to all these little kids. He'd bring his bats in, different stuff like that, and it was really, really neat.
The ultimate show and tell.
Yes, definitely.
Tyler, if there was a memorable moment for you this summer in the Northwoods League with the Loggers, maybe one offensively and one defensively, what would you say they were?
I would definitely say offensive memory would be the walk-off hit against Madison. I don't remember how long ago that was, but that was my first walk-off I had in probably about 3 years, and it felt good to come in against a guy that was throwing pretty hard and put a good swing on the ball. And defensively, all I can remember is that one crazy play where the ball was hit. We had guys on second and third, nobody out, and the ball was hit over to Chris at first base, and he threw it to third. We managed to get 2 outs on the play and get out of the inning, so that was exciting.
Have you ever seen a guy caress his size that's so natural over there and athletic at first base?
Yeah, he can definitely move. He's got the left-handed advantage over there at first base, and I like the way he plays over there.
All right, Tyler, it's been great catching up with you, Loggers fans. I'm sure enjoyed this little sit-down with you. Thanks very much for joining us.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Loggers fans, tune in next time for the next edition of Meet the Loggers.